Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. It's a topic that's been debated for years and may finally be coming to a close. Should the City of Dryden adopt the Ontario Provincial Police as its official police force? Members of Dryden's policing community and several residents gathered at the centre in Dryden Monday to get a final look at the costs involved in making that switch. Adam Riley reports.
It's been almost 5 months since the Ontario Provincial Police delivered details on the costs entailed in a switch from a municipal service to the OPP. To help break down the numbers, the city hired the accounting firm MNP, which provided its final report to council Monday evening. There were several interested spectators in attendance, including Inspector Ann Tachik, who represents the senior officers on the Dryden Police Service. She took issue with the statement from an MNP presenter who said, "We're not trying to predict the future."
As a member of the Police Association, my understanding was, in fact, that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find an accurate number to represent the possible cost of policing after year 3.
The initial costing estimates provided by the OPP only cover a 3-year period and included a jump of over $1 million from the current DPS costs. Councillor and former police chief Shane McKinnon also took issue with some of the numbers presented. He says between 2004 and 2019, the size of the municipal police service has only expanded by 1 officer, but the study for the future indicates otherwise.
You have taken the opportunity to arbitrarily add 5 officers over the time of your study. 15 years, which is an extraordinary study. I don't think I've seen a study at 15 years, 10 maybe. Yet with your OPP modeling, you didn't add 5 officers into theirs over the same period of time. So those numbers are skewed.
But despite the criticisms, Mayor Greg Wilson says MNP delivered what they wanted, which was a long-term look at the cost of policing in the community.
I think in general it was informative. They did a lot of legwork, and council now needs to digest, the community needs to digest this information. They can find it on our website, the report, so they can peruse it at their own leisure.
Wilson says the next public meeting on March 21st will give residents a chance to provide their comments before council makes its final decision, which Wilson believes will either be in April or May. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Well, some good news for those on the waiting list for long-term care in the Rainy River District. The admissions hold at Rainy Crest Long-Term Care will be lifted starting Monday. It comes just over a year after the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care suspended new admissions to the 148-bed facility due to a long list of non-compliance issues. In October, the operator, Riverside Healthcare, entered into a 3-year third-party management agreement with Extendicare Assist. Riverside officials call the reopening of the home a tribute to the commitment of staff and management. The number of residents had dwindled to 86 as of Thursday, and officials expect to be back up to full capacity within 4 months. Thunder Bay's 2 Liberal MPs reaffirmed their backing of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This comes following his acknowledgement of what the PM called an erosion of trust between his office and former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould in the SNC-Lavalin affair. The Prime Minister addressed the controversy on Thursday, where he confirmed that his staff members contacted Wilson-Raybould on the case at the time that she was Justice Minister, in an attempt to illustrate the impact of her decision. It's an engagement Trudeau wished he had made personally. MPs Don Rusnak and Patty Hajdu acknowledged the loss of communications between the 2 parties, but said Canadians should look to see both sides of the story.
Obviously, there was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication in the PMO's office and between ministers, and that happens. We're people, right? There's emotion, yeah, but we're people. It's a human business, and relationships are important. And hopefully, the Prime Minister's statement today will begin the road to mending these broken relationships.
I'm glad to hear the Prime Minister say that we're moving forward in a way that looks at a breakdown in communication clearly between the former Attorney General and the Prime Minister's office. I'm also glad to hear the Prime Minister talk about the idea of studying separating those roles. And I will say that as the Minister of Employment, I did not ever have that experience with the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's office.
Both MPs agree they have had disagreements with the Prime Minister in the past, but they say they've never felt pressure from him or his office on past files and believe their perspectives were always taken into consideration. Kiwetnong MPP So Mamakwa is following the lead of his federal NDP colleagues and introducing a bill which calls for Ontario laws to align with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Dubbed UNDRIP, the bill embodies the rights that constitute the minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of the Indigenous peoples of the world. Mamakwa introduced the bill at a press conference in Toronto this week, where he was joined by NAN Deputy Grand Chief Derek Fox, Six Nations Chief Ava Hill, and Fort William Chief Peter Collins. Mamakwa spoke of the benefits the UNDRIP will have on First Nation communities from the perspectives of health and economic development. The proponents see the bill as a means towards a renewed relationship with the province.
It is intended to correct the wrongs of the past by acknowledging and protecting the inherent rights of Indigenous peoples to their traditional lands, their right to self-determination, and to protect Indigenous culture and languages, which are so vital.
Recognition of these rights in provincial and federal law is fundamental to the survival, dignity, and well-being of NAN First Nations and Indigenous peoples across Ontario and Canada.
Fox says the timing of this bill is important as the province looks at repealing the controversial Far North Act, which NAN has long been opposed to. Mamakwa believes all of his colleagues on either side of the House will agree with him and support the bill. While there's mixed reaction from local police agencies regarding this week's announcement from the Ontario SPCA. As of April 1st, the organization will no longer conduct animal welfare investigations in the province. That announcement came in response to a recent court ruling that declared it unconstitutional for Ontario to give a private charity policing powers without proper government oversight. The province is now appealing that decision. And while the OPP says the move won't have much of an impact on its operations throughout the region, Thunder Bay Police have serious concerns about the added responsibility placed on their officers. Ryan Banazzo reports.
The announcement came out of nowhere on Monday morning, the OSPCA indicating it will no longer conduct its own animal cruelty investigations as it has for the last century, once its contract with the province runs out at the end of the month. The move blindsiding some police forces that will likely now have to pick up the slack.
It leaves us in a bit of a vacuum at the moment.
As we await a ruling from the Ontario Court of Appeal regarding the legality of the OSPCA's policing powers, Thunder Bay Police Acting Deputy Chief Don Lewis admits he's concerned about the impact of this decision on both officers and animals.
It is an additional responsibility on our police members, but it also is concerning that we don't want anything slipping through the cracks either with regards to some serious issues that may involve animal cruelty.
The OPP, however, insists it won't be a big change on its end.
I don't think it's going to be a huge impact. They are going to continue to assist the police with these investigations, which means if we take a call at detachment and we have to follow up, we can contact the OSPCA.
Golding notes the OPP deals with only a handful of animal cruelty cases across the Northwest.
We get around roughly 10 of these cases per year.
But already this year, 12 of the 25 total animal calls dealt with by Thunder Bay Police have involved some form of animal cruelty.
That is a concern, that there could be a challenge on resources.
Local Humane Society officials have declined to speak publicly on the matter, noting there are still a lot of unknowns. Currently, there are 2 OSPCA enforcement agents working out of the Humane Society shelter on Roslyn Road. It's unclear what will happen to those positions after March 31st. Ryan Banazzo, TBT News.
Firefighters in Nipigon had their hands full last Saturday with a 2-alarm fire at a gas station in the community. The fire broke out next to a walk-in cooler in the basement of the Esso shortly before 7 o'clock that evening. Nipigon firefighters began putting water on the fire and kept it contained to the basement. Fire Chief Jim Kay says the Esso is located outside of the range of Nipigon's fire hydrant network, and assistance was requested from nearby Lake Helen Fire Department to provide water. According to Kay, there was only minor smoke damage and the business is open once again. Coming up after the break, officials with Kiiwetinoong Patricia District School Board state there is a problem with drugs and alcohol at one of its schools and are willing to go the distance to fix it. Drug and alcohol use have long been an issue in schools across the province, but at Dryden High School, that issue has evolved into a major one. The Kiwetan-Patricia School Board recently requested help from the city and its police force to deal with the problem, and the high school then went into a lockdown as police searched for drugs. Adam Riley reports.
Last month, Director of Education for the Kiwetan-Patricia District School Board, Sean Monteith, made an impassioned plea to Dryden City Council for help regarding a growing problem with drugs and alcohol at Dryden High School. Monteith says DHS stands apart from their other schools, estimating that every day, on average, 30% of administration at the school is spent dealing with drugs, alcohol, or suspected drug use. Monteith also hinted at increased incidents involving cocaine, crystal methamphetamine, and the antidepressant Xanax. He also claimed the board has the data which gives further detail to the problem, but will not share it publicly. And the issue has also made it onto the provincial radar, as in late January, the Ministry of Education contacted him to discuss the problems at DHS. Dryden Mayor Greg Wilson says Monteith's request has been heard, and he's positive about the situation going forward.
We have a high level of engagement by various stakeholders in the community that has not been seen to this degree before. So I'm excited about that.
Monteith concluded his presentation to council, hinting at action to come, which came the next day in the form of a hold and secure at DHS, which caught many students off guard.
We were getting our books to go to class, and they went on the announcements and said this is a lock and secure. So we ran into Mr. Cran's room thinking it was like a real thing, like something bad was going on. But they said that we weren't allowed our phones or anything. So then we kind of figured out, once we seen all the teachers searching the lockers, that they were searching for drugs without the students there.
I'm kind of scared. They didn't really tell us what was going on until people started finding out that it was they were going through lockers and stuff, and then a lot of people got suspended.
Dryden Police Chief Doug Paulson says his officers are ready to assist in any way they can, but he doesn't see the situation at a crisis level, adding things have settled down and the service has increased patrols at the school. Paulson also says there is no evidence to support Monteith's mention of crystal methamphetamine. Board officials declined an on-camera interview, and the students we spoke with say they just want a safe environment to learn in.
I hope that they get it all figured out and maybe make the school a little more safer with all the things that have been going on throughout the school year. And
there's been a couple overdoses, and one of them was my best friend, so I hope they get it fixed up soon.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
It was a full house at the Valhalla Inn on Tuesday for the Matawa First Nations Annual Education Conference. The main topic for the next 3 days is focused around bringing their traditional language back to the forefront. Alana Pickrell has the details.
Members from Matawa and the Kiwetinuk-Okimakanik Board of Education gathered for Matawa's 12th Annual Education Conference. And despite the wide range of participants, language seemed to be everyone's main priority. Nistandaga First Nation elder Peter Muniz says this year's conference is more important than ever because young children are losing their native language.
The main goal is to start to recognize the real value of our culture and language. When you have a lot of people show up like that, it shows that there is a lot of concern and interest on getting back to what we are as Native people.
With 70 workshops over the 3-day conference, teachers and others involved in community schools and education are given the chance to share resources, network with colleagues, and collaborate on ways to keep education a top priority moving forward. Arrowland First Nation Chief Dorothy Toito says the workshops give people a chance to sign up for what teachers are most interested in or topics they want to gain more knowledge on.
It is very important to gather. Like I said, you get ideas together on how to make things better.
The conference also featured 3 keynote speakers, including New Zealand High Commissioner Daniel Melsop. He says it's a priority for both the Canadian and New Zealand government to promote the links between the Indigenous communities.
The education of our young people is, is central. It's critical to resolving those or addressing those challenges longer term. We won't get to where we want to be without education for everyone.
Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
Kiwetan MPP Sol Mamakwa voiced his frustrations at Queen's Park on Monday on behalf of the Cat Lake First Nation. He criticized the Ford government's lack of action to provide health and emergency relief. The remote First Nation declared a state of emergency in January after numerous homes were infested with black mold. The problem led to major health issues and skin rashes on community members, including young children. The issue has also led to the death of a Cat Lake woman. The federal government agreed several weeks ago to provide immediate temporary housing to the community, but Mamakwa says they have yet to do so. Ottawa did send a health assessment team to Cat Lake, but not the promised additional nurses. Mamakwa questioned Finance Minister Vic Fideli on the lack of provincial help being provided in the Cat Lake First Nation.
Will this government stop playing games with the lives and the health of children and families of Cat Lake and send up the emergency health team to the community so desperately needs now?
While the provision of housing on reserves remains the responsibility of the federal government, we have reached out to the community to offer Ontario's full support. The safety and well-being of our First Nations communities that declare a social or infrastructure emergency is of great concern and great importance to this government.
A budget shortfall of just over $1.5 million has the city of Kenora looking for options to increase its revenue stream. One of those options includes the implementation of enforcement of weekend parking. The meters already state there is enforcement from Monday to Saturday, but it's no joke starting April 1st. Bylaw officers in Kenora will be enforcing parking meters on Saturday. Mayor Dan Reynard says city staff have estimated the extra day of enforcement will bring in anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. He adds the money would be a non-tax-based revenue stream, giving some relief to taxpayers in addition to other benefits.
We already have bylaw officers that work on Saturdays, so there's no impact on our staffing model. There's no real impact on collecting or rolling and providing, because those, it's a pretty streamlined service. So it was one piece of the puzzle that allows us to additional source of revenue without taxing the ratepayer and not impacting levels of service.
Reynard says it could take 1 to 2 years to determine the exact amount the extra day will bring in to city coffers, as only 9 out of the 12 months of 2019 are being enforced. Coming up next, thrill seekers head to new heights in Nipigon. Now, if you have a fear of heights, you might want to look away. Adrenaline junkies took to the ice walls along Highway 11 near Nipigon last weekend for the 33rd annual Nipigon Ice Fest, which utilized the frozen waterfalls and takes winter adventure tourism to new heights. Adam Riley reports.
We decided to get a couple guys together, and we had the first one. Was 4 of us in Beardmore, winter in March 1986.
Since that day 33 years ago, thrill seekers have been descending upon Nipigon only to ascend to new heights during the Nipigon Ice Fest. Founder Sean Parent says he was inspired after hearing about a similar festival in Alaska, and he is happy to see the tradition continue to grow even after handing over leadership to Eric Fishman in 2001.
You know, the dream was back in '81 that it would one day become a climbing destination, and thanks to Eric and the local climbers, it's become a climbing destination. You know, there's a guy here from Cambridge, England, flew here to climb for 10 days.
Fishman, a local climbing enthusiast, business owner, and author, says there were some issues this year, which came from the larger than normal amount of snow that has impacted the entire region. But he and other organizers were prepared for the worst and made the best.
There's lots of deep snow. We all trekked out to the different climbing areas in groups. And so some people had harder times than others getting to the areas, but we all stuck together to get to the spots. And then once we got there, beautiful ice walls. So we had the instructors go ahead of time and set the ropes up, things like that. So when the participants arrived, everything's ready to go.
One of the participants was Brian Collins, who describes himself as a bit of an adrenaline junkie. He says he has been ice climbing for 2 years, but this is the first ice fest he has attended.
You started out rock climbing, and then I heard say, hey, you can go ice climbing too. And it's like, I'm all for that. It's just as crazy and just as an adrenaline rush.
What was it like out there today?
It was quite cold, but once you got on the ice wall, it warmed up quite a bit once the sun came out, and it was really nice.
Collins says he will take this year's experiences to plan ahead in anticipation of the 2020 Nipigon Ice Fest. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The federal government is looking to better integrate internationally trained newcomers to Canada. Minister Patty Hajdu launched a call for concepts on Thursday to address specific barriers that keep highly skilled immigrants from entering the country's workforce. Tyler Kelleher reports.
My first experience with someone as a newcomer who, turned out to be a trained physician who was cleaning offices in an organization that I worked in my 20s, and that is a complete waste.
Labour Minister Patty Hajdu voiced her displeasure regarding the untapped workforce of visible minorities entering Canada. It's a long-standing issue the Foreign Credential Recognition Program has been working to resolve with the help of local organizations. The federally supported Call for Concepts offers up to $10 million to test and fund new proposals from local agencies just like the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association, offering fresh new perspectives towards better acknowledging the credentials of experienced newcomers who can contribute to the community's workforce.
We actually can gain knowledge from the very people that are doing the hands-on work. And it's no disrespect to the hardworking bureaucrats that serve us every single day, but the more removed you are from the ground, the harder it is for you to see new ideas.
I talk to employers daily. I'm out in the community daily, hearing from employers what they want, what they need, what they're looking for, and be able to come back and match that to our wonderful newcomers with the skills and credentials that they have. They come with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience, and that's what we want to harness.
Fredericton MP Matt DeCourcy serves the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship and views the program as another launch pad for skilled immigrants to support the demands of the Canadian labor market.
It's evident that there are job openings available and that there are not enough people with the skills right now to meet that labor demand. While our government works on skills development for Canadians, we know that bringing immigrants to this country who already have the skills and the education and experience that can help meet that labor market need is absolutely essential.
Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
And that's all for this edition of Northwest News Week. Tune in next week for a brand new episode. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.